Good afternoon. Welcome to another edition of Museum Moments with Jewish Museum Milwaukee. My name is Ellie Gettinger. I'm the Education Director at Jewish Museum Milwaukee, and I am here to talk about another highlight that we explore in the museum, but this gave me an opportunity to really go into more depth and to talk more about kind of an icon in our community. Today, I am excited to tell you about the New American Club. And when I started thinking about this museum moment, I started thinking about it in terms of it's 4th of July week, and we wanted to talk about kind of American institutions. We wanted to talk about entities that reflected American values and ideas, and I think this one is perfect. Initially, we were going to do New American Club and New Home Club together. And as we started processing, it became clear that those needed to be kind of their own standalone museum moments, just because there's so much information about both of those organizations. And we're really delighted to be able to share this one about New American Club, knowing that later on we're going to be able to get to New Home Club too. So New American Club, this is a great name. You think about it, you're like, ooh, who's this for? What's it about? And this was an organization that was formed in the 1950s. And actually, one of the things that's the most challenging in working with this organization is finding a clear start date on their a clear founding date. And there's a lot of different historical memory between 1950, 1951, 1952. I believe the 10th anniversary was celebrated in 1962. So that would make, kind of a case for 1952. But it was an organization that was started by survivors of the Holocaust. People who had come here just in the last year, when in 1950, 52, that they are just arriving in Milwaukee, and they're looking for an organization. They're looking for maybe not an organization. They're actually looking for a way to connect personally, to have those kind of personal connections, and to rebuild their families in this new world that they're settling themselves in. So the New American Club becomes an important piece of that. And I found so many good pieces about it, and I still would say there's so much that I could learn. The founding president was this guy, Sam Siegelman, who you see pictured here. And this is actually after he has stepped down as president. He was president for 11 years and was kind of this towering figure at the beginning of the club's founding. They're announcing a dinner in his honor. And he is describing the kind of founding that as people have come to Milwaukee, they felt, he says, in the early years of immigration from Europe, the foreigners to Milwaukee, again, this is the 1960s language, felt like sheep without a shepherd because of the lack of language, because of the language barrier and the lack of family and friends. Mr. Siegelman saw the need to establish a club where newcomers could meet with their fellow countrymen. With the help of a few friends and the Jewish Community Center, the New American Club was formed in 1951 with Mr. Siegelman as president. So the sense is that it's a social club, and that it really does form this kind of nexus of community relations, that this is a place where you can go for community celebrations. It's a place where you can catalyze your kind of energies towards political causes, and they do. And then you also have all sorts of different historical connections and ties and religious ties. So this is an article that appeared fairly close to their founding, January 19th, 1956, in the Milwaukee Journal. And you can see this is an incredibly incendiary kind of headline here. That this is a headline that grabs you. This is a headline where you're like, what could they possibly be saying here? And they're talking about, they talk about the experiences of these people. One of the things that I found particularly interesting in this newspaper article is that they talk about the fact that 5 years before there had been many, many more immigration quotas, and that had been limited, which had led to the members of the club being able to come to the United States after being in displaced persons camps. It also says that at this time, the membership is about 350 members. And this is a question I get all the time. How many survivors came to Milwaukee? And it's a really hard number to get at. But the 350 people in this club in 1956 were all survivors of the Holocaust, and we're all looking at this for community engagement. One of the things that I find really interesting about this article is the caption actually for this beautiful picture is, "Freedom of assembly is one of the blessings of democracy enjoyed to the hilt by the leaders of the New American Club of the Jewish Community Center. The club is made up of survivors of Nazi concentration camps. Some of the members are shown above planning a rally on behalf of Israel bonds." And then it goes on to list the names and addresses of all of the gentlemen in this image, in this picture. But it also talks about the kind of formation of the club and the activities and all of the different things. It talks about, there's a great quote from Joe Peltz in here. And it really does give that sense of this kind of, I would say, secular sacred space, although they do take religious activity. One of my favorite kind of memories of my work in the museum is always linked to Sylvia Blasberg. And Sylvia Blasberg was a longtime member of the club, and she actually also lived next door at the Jewish Home and Care Center. And she would often be sitting outside the Jewish Home and Care Center. And when I would take groups of students out to look at the Community Holocaust Memorial, she would come up and talk to them. And for many of my groups, I can tell you, when Sylvia was alive and they had this kind of very impromptu conversation, that it became the highlight of their visit. And they were like, "Is she just there?" And I'm like, "No, you just happened to catch her when she was outside." She was active in this organization early on and throughout its kind of lifespan. And one of the things she described is their kind of early political action. They invited Senator Pritzlow to come in and to address them before he was a senator, when he was running. And many of these people weren't citizens yet. So it's this kind of act in some way of chutzpah saying, "Hey, we're not all going to be able to vote for you, but we want to be informed when we can." And she says to him, "I said in my speech, although we are not citizens yet, but we are very proud and we are looking forward to vote. And of course, we understand what he's speaking about. And we are very proud of the privilege given to us because we never had that opportunity, that chance in our life in Polish elections. First of all, we were too young and I don't even remember. And during the war, we didn't have it. That was the first opportunity for us, and it was nice. And that's how our club came to exist. This idea that it wasn't just about having a place to go together, but also having a way to become civically engaged." This quote, and actually another quote I have a little later, are from oral histories that were collected by the Wisconsin Historical Society. They're all available on their website, and I will link to this particular one and the other one that I use in the comments later. The New American Club had all sorts of activities, as I've said. This is a picture of their organizing committee from 1959-1960. This was recently donated by Shirley Koppel to our museum. And one of the things that comes out of this kind of conversation is, when we started this day, I had all but 3 people identified in this photo, and now we have all but 1 person. So if anyone knows who the gentleman in the suit on the far left is, we're looking for his name. Otherwise, all of these people are identified. And one of the things, I talked to Betty Krastowski today about this particular image, and that she pointed out that there's a guy in the image named Mr. Vilsack. And she was like, "I don't know his first name because we always just called him Mr. Vilsack." So if you happen to know Mr. Vilsack's first name or the unidentified gentleman in this photo, this is a way that we can add to our collections and make sure that we're transmitting this history for future generations. So here are a couple of items that kind of give you a sense of what they're doing, as we've been talking about. One of the things that I love is this New Americans purchase a $12,300 Israel bond. And this is in 1956. Many of these people have not even been in the United States for a decade at this point, and they have found a way to combine their purchasing power to make themselves into an organization with clout. $12,300 in 1956. This was actually the bond that they were raising money for in the in the article from the Milwaukee Journal. And it just is a tremendous testament. The one thing that it says is that they were going to go back and contact all the people who weren't there because they felt they could make it a $20,000 Israel bond. This other piece is that officers are elected at the New American Club, and it's an inaugural ceremony after they've reorganized the club. This is from 1961. And the thing that I think is particularly interesting about this is that the attendance for this meeting where they're just kicking off their new attendance, this new board, was over 200 people, which is a tremendous statement about the power of getting together and creating a new family and how deep these connections were. So this is again from those oral histories, and I think speaks very much to the mission of the New American Club. And it's, he's saying that this was about bringing relatives together since we have none. I would say it's considered a relationship. Don't forget, when a group of people know each other for what could almost be considered a lifetime, 30 years is a long time. I would say it gets to be a habit. It grows on you. If our membership doesn't get an invitation for one reason or another, they say, how come we're not meeting? It isn't an accidental thing. And I'm going to move into this because this quote got cut off on my thing. He says, again, going back to having, relatives, since we have none, I would say it's considered like a relationship. This became a family. And then at the end, he ends by saying it isn't more of an accidental thing. It's a continuous way of life, that this is really their social conduit. This group was instrumental in founding the Holocaust Education Resource Center and putting their resources behind that. It also is the group that started the tradition of Yom HaShoah in our community and gave us a sense of how we commemorate the Holocaust as a community. Beyond that, this group of individuals, many of them, for many, many years, were the people who were pivotal in being speakers about the Holocaust throughout our community. So I think I'm truly happy to celebrate the New American Club, to celebrate what it meant to be American for them, being able to vote, being able to engage in our rights and liberties. And I'm also really delighted that they were able to show us how to understand the Holocaust, how to continue to maintain our Holocaust history. So we'll be back again on Thursday with another museum moment. Thanks for taking a moment out with me.